to get right into the meat and potatoes of this, but I just want to give a quick overview.
No, you're great.
Who haven't, kind of worked with us or heard of us. So as far as the multi-stream technology goes, you can have, like I said, up to 250 streams of data running to a single media at one time. So backing up to 2 tapes, we could have up to 500 streams of data, which basically translates to the customer as extremely fast backups, very high performance, and we usually shrink backup windows anywhere from about 30 to 85%. So we've had quite a few customers who've told us, and we've kind of seen the results of that, where they'll be struggling to get a full backup over the period of a weekend, and after we implement our software, they're able to pretty much get full backups every night. So it's extremely high performance and very quick. One other thing I'll just highlight real quick, since it's on our website here, we just came out with a new module for Citrix Zen Server. It's called Zen and Now, and so it basically backs up VM guests on Citrix Zen Server platform. So we've had the same product for VMware for quite a while, and we released our Citrix version of that too. So. One other thing I'll add before we get started is we do back up to pretty much every single kind of media possible. Anything that connects to your network, we can back up to, and we're able to do that because we use all generic drivers, so we don't have any proprietary drivers. So it's very flexible and very easy to scale from an SMB market all the way up to an enterprise market. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to James Delmonico. What we're going to show you guys coming up right now is just a basic install of SEPSISM. We can have the product fully installed, implemented, up and running with full scheduling and email notifications in about 20 minutes. So I'm not sure if some of you may be familiar with other software that takes a little bit longer to install, but we're pretty impressed and pretty happy that we've gotten it to a point that we can do a full installation in about 20 minutes. So, James, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. We are looking at a freshly installed Citrix VM, Windows 2008 R2, 64-bit. We prepared the machine with our proper DNS entry, and we've installed the Sun JRE. I've also downloaded a copy of SEPSISM version 4.0 from the website. Proceed with the installation. We run it as administrator. Here we select the SEPSISM server kit. It contains everything necessary to back up local machine and remote machine. Now, software will unzip itself, create base installation, and then it will go ahead and create a database instance to store the catalog, and it will then back itself up, restore itself as a regression test. So that test, that the DNS is good, client and server components work together, and in a Unix type environment, it also tests that your libraries are good and are able to push valid data. At this point, it's normally a good thing to have disabled your antivirus protection if you have any on the system, or you can go in and exclude SEPSISM from the scan. While we're waiting for that, we'll go ahead and check our local storage, see what type of space we have available. Okay, so we have a 100 gigabyte E drive here, which we'll be able to use to store our backup data. We could very well be storing the backup data to a NAS or to a SAN or anything like that. Definitely very open. Now it's performing the restore part of the regression test.
It looks like this is taking a couple seconds. I guess this is what happens when you do a live demo and don't show a video. But we should be going here in a second.
Okay, so now that installation's finished, okay. Okay, this is the System Tray app. Gives us the ability to do things like, restart the service or shut it off if we'd like to do that. You open our Sesame GUI either here through the taskbar or through the desktop icon. I'm so sorry. I'm having a technical difficulty here loading this. I don't know what's going on. Let me try to figure this out. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go ahead and just trigger that installation again, assuming that I either hit the wrong button or something like that. This is a fairly limited platform, performance-wise. Sesame fully supports Sesame Server on Linux, Windows, and Solaris. There's client support for numerous other operating systems, BSD, whatnot. So you should you'll see the exact same thing. The actual GUI itself, we use the same Java RMI file to create the GUI on Windows, Linux, and Unix. And so you get the exact same behavior. Bring up Task Manager so you can watch the progress here a little bit. At this point, Sesame's scanning for locally attached loaders, local tape drives, and also our system volumes, just to find a place to store backup data. make sure our Java is installed on here. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with this VM. I'm sorry, it looks like the installation on here has failed, so I'm going to try to load it manually here. Okay, well, unfortunately, it looks like this demonstration server is in a broken state. I'm so sorry. Let me switch to another machine here.
While you're doing that, there were a couple of questions that came through.
Okay.
So one is, you install on a Windows server. Does the base component also run from SUSE Linux?
Sure does. And in fact, in Novell environments, we recommend OES2 Linux server to run SESM. And the idea behind that is then you can use the backup server as a TSA requester, and you can initiate connections directly against the cluster. That way you get failover capability. And so that's definitely well supported on Novell.
Again, apologize about the slight delay here, folks. We've been running this demo for, I would say, probably a couple hundred times in a row, and we haven't had any instances like this. So it's unfortunate it's happening now. I do apologize. Did you have any other questions that have come in?
Let me check really quick here.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. Doesn't seem there's any other questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put those through, and we'll answer those as they come through.
We should be up and running here in just a second. Like I said, it's fairly quick install and a very quick setup just to get everything in place. We obviously would have preferred to have everything ready to go from the get-go, but we'll be going here shortly.
I'm just going through removing the software from the current version so we can go ahead and install a fresh copy.
All right.
I can just go through too real quick and kind of go over some of the way we license and some other product information that we get questions often about. So our main licensing model is very similar to a traditional licensing model for backup software, where we license a main server and then we'll license clients and or agents. Then we also will license each component of additional modules that add on to our main product. So we have modules for all major databases. So we have online backup modules for the most popular ones like MS SQL and MySQL and Postgre, DB2, Oracle. We have full support for SAP, and we actually have the highest level of third-party certification or highest level of certification for any third-party vendor from SAP. So we integrate with them very well. We support GroupWise, Exchange, Lotus Notes, and several other groupware programs, and we offer full support for those down to single email restore. So all of those would be additional licensing components onto our main server level and client level. As far as the server level goes, we have 4 different servers that we offer, and it's basically just performance difference between those servers. So all of the installations that you'll see and all of the servers that one would install will have all of the same features and functionalities and capabilities. The only difference between them would be the amount of streams of data that we license for the multi-streaming technology. So on an entry-level server, it comes with 5 streams of data, and then going back to the example I gave before, that goes all the way up to our enterprise-level server, which comes with 250 streams of data. So we have 4 different levels in there, a 5, a 25, a 100, and a 250. So the advantages to that are obviously being competitive in different markets, and also really meeting an end user's needs as far as the number of servers they have, the number of streams that their bandwidth can facilitate, and finding the right fit to them. So we can also update those or upgrade those at any time. So it's very scalable. If someone wants to start out with a lower model and graduate to a higher model down the road, that's perfectly fine. And the main benefit is that everyone ends up with the same product. So whether it be a small mom and pop shop that has 3 servers, or an enterprise level, bank or financial institution with 10,000 server installation, they're going to get the exact same product. They'll have all the same features, all the same functionality. The only thing, that would be different would be the actual performance, the licensing for the performance. So we have some customers that we've worked with that have gone from when we first went in and kind of looked at their network, they had roughly, I think they were backing up roughly about 70 gigabytes an hour. And after we installed our premium server, which is, actually it was an advanced server, it was 25 streams of data, they went from 70 gigabytes up to 1.3 terabytes an hour. So that's just kind of an example of the performance increases that you can see with using the multi-streaming. All right, looks like we are up and running. And James, I will turn this back over to you. I'd just like to thank everyone for their patience. Again, this is a live demo. It's just, honestly, this has really actually never happened, but hopefully we're all still here, and we'll go ahead and take it from the top here.
Okay. Now we have a working operating system today, and so we've gone through the basic install. Same preparation, DNS, proper hostname resolution, and SunJava. We go through and check to see if we're expecting any physical loaders. They'd be shown here. If we're expecting any physical tape drives, they would be shown here. We're not expecting those in this case. First thing we want to do is create a media pool. It's somewhere to store our backup data, and we'll call it Sesam Pool. We tell Sesam whether it's a physical tape drive or fiber channel tape, or if it's disk or SAN. In this case, we'll use disk. We'll want Sesam to retain data for 24 hours, not very long. And we'll give it 10 gigabytes of space to use. We could use a UNC path here. We could also use a Unix path if we were on Unix, / in this case, make folder on the C drive. Okay, So now we have a media pool. We want to go ahead and add media. Instead of adding the media one at a time with this new media button, I'm going to use the loader interface. And this is the exact same thing I would do with a real physical loader. I would highlight the loader, go to Archive Adjustment, select the media pool that we made, and figure out what size tapes we want to use. I think because this is a 10 gig pool, let's use 2 gig tapes. And we'll create 5 2 gig tapes, slots 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, this is going to go ahead and create all these tapes. We call it initializing, same as formatting. At this point, we normally set up the email notification, and there are multiple notification technologies in SESM. The main two are email notification and SNMP traps. So that's good for setting up with a network management system, or if you already have that paging you. Anyway, our standard script is called with the term SESM here. I tend to put the host name of the machine I'm using in here, so I know if I get multiple emails where it came from. From address can be anything that your mail system likes. Mail server. Username, password, and port are not required unless your mail server has a different setting there. Okay, so that's what email notification setup would look like. It does support Google. Additionally, there are different interfaces, which are the actual PowerShell scripts that are run. The 3 stock interfaces are Notify, Alarm, and Disaster. Notify is the affirmative interface. It says, you know, there were no backup failures within the last 24 hours, nothing that needs to be attended to. So that's going to be one message every day. If there is an error that day, instead of getting the notification message, you get the alarm message. And you get one notification immediately when the failure happens, so you can go in and restart that task. You also get a daily summary. And so I'm copying these out of the Scale folder into the bin folder with the by hitting save here. You could also use this as an editor if you like. This disaster interface is special for server disasters. And what happens is it sends you an email every day with command line to restore from your latest tape or storage media into a blank install of SESM. So if your server blows up, all you've got left is the tape. You just put the tape in, put a fresh install of SESM, whether it's Linux or Unix, doesn't matter. Paste the commands from the disaster email, and then you're going to be ready to go using your new server. So we always turn on all 3 interfaces. Okay, so now we've got the server context set up. What we've got left are client context, setting up backup tasks, and then grouping and scheduling those to run automatically. First thing we'll do is go in and look at the default task created for the backup server. Okay. This test backup has a little green indicator because it ran successfully last time. I'm going to delete that. We don't need those that data or results at this point. This restore task is from the regression test as well. And in SESM, you can schedule backup, restore, commands, and migration. The scheduled restores are not a licensed feature, so you're able to produce warm standbys of any equipment. You're also able to do a scheduled restore of group-wise into the restore area. That way, when it's time to pull someone's message, you can just go to the restore area and drag it out without having to go into the backup system. You can really do anything that you want there. Okay, so this default Windows XP all task will pick up everything on the system. And it's with DSS, so you know, if you do have less than 50% occupied space, then you are able to do the entire backup through the shadow volume without any type of locked files. On all Windows machines, we add a new backup task for the registry. And specifically, this is the system state recovery from 2008. So this will work on all Windows operating systems. Okay, so now we have a media pool, and we have some example tasks set up for this client. we're on a very limited platform here because we have the backup server and the host OS both running on the same virtual machine. So you would expect much higher performance out of a real system. Okay, so we've done an immediate start of the session backup task, full backup to the media pool we created. We're able to start and queue as many of these tasks as we want at the same time. For performance reasons, I'm only going to do one right now. But this, like when I said, this demo license supports 5 streams to single media, and production licenses go up to 250. Okay, so now we have our task running. I'm going to switch to the performance view so you can kind of see the status. We'd see all 5 tasks listed here. We had more than one at a time started. Okay, so in this client context, we've got 3 types of things. We have our session backup, we have our file system backup, and we have an online database backup of our registry. So now we're going to create some runtime groups. And from here on out, the features aren't licensed. So you can do whatever you want that you feel suits the environment. So don't feel stuck on this design. This is just to show you the basics of how it works. Okay, let's say that we want to do database backup in one style because we want full every day. So we make a database group and we add a task. Now we have our database group. Now we want another task group for disk. We'll add our file system task. Okay, now we have some runtime groups created. And this is nice as a scheduling aid because we'll schedule against the groups for the style that we'd like to back up each group. Then when we go in to add more clients, all we have to do is add their tasks, test them, add them into the group, and we don't have to go back into the scheduling. Due to the multi-stream, we have the ability to schedule everything at the same time and let the service figure out what order to do everything. Okay, so this new day schedule is the most important schedule in Sesame. This does the housekeeping task. So it sends out that daily email notification, it cleans out the database, it compresses old log files, and it restarts the service. So by default, this new day task closes the backup window at 8 in the morning. I'm going to rename it here to make it a little bit clearer what's going on. So again, backup window closes by default at 8 a.m. We can run this whenever we want. This schedule is the one-time regression test during the installation. I'm just going to delete it because we don't need automated regression tests for the demonstration. Okay. Now that we have schedule cleaned out, the first thing we want to do is prepare for server disaster. And we do that by backing up the catalog. And we like to run this backup right before new day. And that lends us to having a copy of the catalog at the end of the tape with the current day's backup on it. So really, all you need is your last tape for your catalog. This is normally the only task we schedule. Normally, everything else is scheduled in the groups. So just right-click on it and do a new backup event. Select the backup type, which is full by default. Select the media pool that we made, Sesame pool. We'll memorize it to make that the default pool for this machine. Choose Sesame backup. So we're doing a full backup of Sesame. Okay. So now we have the server contact schedule done. Now what we're looking at doing is backing up actual user data. So I'm going to start with the weekly task and rename it to make it a little bit more clear. Okay, now we've made a schedule for Sundays at 10 p.m. We'll add a new backup event to the schedule. full backup of the task group disk. Okay, now we're set to back up all of our local disk every night, or excuse me, every Sunday. Now we'll add another new backup event for the group database. We're going to raise the priority on this database task, so it will stream out all the databases first before jumping into the larger file system. Okay, so now we have full backup for disk and database scheduled on Sunday. Now we're going to have a couple more schedules. First one is going to be for database backup. We're going to want to do that in full every day. Okay. Now we're going to add our database, new backup event, task group database. Full is already selected. Again, we'll raise the priority, so when these all run at the same time, it'll do databases first. One more schedule for disk. Okay. Now we have all of our schedules created. And for the last backup event, select incremental of our task group disk. Okay, so at this point, we have a completely implemented Sesame server that is set up to back up its file system data incrementally 6 days a week, in full 1 day a week, and to back up database in full every day. At this point, in a normal installation, we'd be going into the topology, breaking down more locations if we had any WAN environments, and adding clients. Every time we added a client, we would go ahead and add the task for that client, and then we would start them to make sure they ran successfully before adding them into the group. So that is all it takes to implement a Sesame server. And you find that the GUI is identical, albeit different tabs and different top menu picture. Exact same on Linux. So everything that you see here in the GUI, works the same on OS. Right now, I'd like to create a small file system task, so I can go ahead and show you the restore wizard. I'm just going to put the path in rather than browsing down here manually. But if in a Novell environment where we had TSAs on board, we would see a Novell subtree here. Under that, we'd see anything loaded in the TSAs. So group-wise, NSS volumes, E directory, iFolder, anything like that. Here we can select, just a file we want. I'm going to go ahead and type the path in manually. Okay. Now I've created a backup task, immediate start, full backup to the media pool we created. I go ahead and monitor the tasks in the job state here. It's split up into backup and restore. In Sesame, in a multi-drive environment, you can have backup and restore running at the same time, as long as they're not running to the same tape. Okay, now we have a successful backup of this task. So I'm going to go to the restore wizard. The second icon up here, otherwise activities restore. It will pick up whichever task is highlighted, otherwise you can select it here. Condition is that the task must have run successfully. This is the date range for when the user lost the data. You can select any task here. It says F here because it was a full backup. If it were an incremental backup based on that full, so we had a full and then some incrementals or differentials, we'd be able to highlight that at this step. If we highlight an incremental or differential, Sesame will automatically check this generation restore button, and it will handle all of the requirements under the hood without you having to worry about it. So it'll automatically load the full tape, run any necessary incrementals first. So essentially, you can select any full incremental or differential type here, and it will take care of you. If you've lost a whole volume and you want to restore the whole task back where it was, complete restore. This skips the file selector and just restores everything in the backup path. In this case, we do want to use the file selector. Okay, we'll select just our host file here, so we can have a nice quick restore. Okay, there's our host file. There's also a search function here, and if you omit the leading slash, so the search for this would be etc/host, that search will work on Linux and on Windows. So you just remove the leading slash. Okay, so this is the final step in the restore wizard, and by default, the data wants to go back to where it came from, but we could go ahead and restore it to any other machine in the system if we wanted to. By default, it goes to the original path. I think in this case, what we want to do is put it on our desktop. So we'll do a new restore target. Use the browser again. Select our desktop. Okay. At this point, this would want to create a folder in our desktop called Windows, System32, Drivers, etc., and then put the host file inside. Uncheck this original tree structure. That should drop the host file directly on our desktop. Again, Sesam won't overwrite without you specifying that. So if you do want to overwrite files, you will have to specify that. Okay, now we started the restore. We can monitor that status in job states restore. If it's long running, we'll see it here on the performance tab. You can see, because this blue status, that the task is active. If it were queued, it would say queued there. Okay, now the restore has succeeded. Let's look for our host file. There it is. So that concludes demonstration of the basic functionality. There are a couple more things that I'd like to talk to you about specifically related to Novell environment. Some of the common difficulties that you have with Novell backup are PSA setup, cluster setup. And what we've done to make that easier is we use the default SMS configuration on Network 6.5 and on OES Linux. We use that default configuration in node level or cluster level. So you just need the stock SMS version without modifications. That makes a big difference. Sesam is able to back up eDirectory, group-wise, NSS volumes, and iFolder, and teaming, byte. You also have the ability to back up data from a Network 6.5 and restore it directly onto OES2. That does handle the migration and case sensitivity issues. Sesam has the ability to back up only ACLs off of NSS volume or only data. That allows you to leverage, the Linux file system agent at, some higher performance possibly. You're allowed to go direct to SAN if you have an HVA. Then, it's something that you can run all of your data directly to the SAN environment without touching the Ethernet, except for log files. That can get you big performance real quick. There's full support for online backup of Citrix guests, as well as VMware. So in general, you should be able to back up absolutely every system that you have in your network through this same system. We do some other things to keep it easy. Like I said, we make the GUI the same on all the operating systems. We also make all of the Sesam binary paths and things all the same. So the same, essentially the same command line will work on both systems. You also have the ability to, set up due to the scheduled restores and scheduled command events, you have a lot of latitude to do things like, set up warm standbys, set up cold standbys. We also have full DR capability, and the DR capability allows you to do a file-level backup of a machine and restore that with a DR to any other machine with the same architecture and the same or larger storage. So you can go from SATA to SAS or from IDE to SCSI or anything like that, as long as the storage is bigger. That also covers going from physical to virtual or virtual to physical. So it's very common use there. It's designed to use in two parts. So part one would be memorizing the DR task memorizes your actual disks, file system UUIDs, mount points, RAID array configuration, and then the normal file system task. So restore procedure would be boot off the set CD, restore the DR task. That would reformat all the volumes, mount all the partitions up. Then you would restore the file system task or even an incremental. A couple nice things, you don't have to do the image level backup there, so you don't have to back up or restore the empty space. And then since you can direct restore the incremental, it makes the actual recovery delta very small. At this point, that's all we've got for the basic demonstration. I'd like to open it up for any type of questions, technical questions, capabilities.
All right, one question did come through. Stated, what version of SAP CSAM supports single email restore on GroupWise 8?
Yes, full support of single mail restores, although Novell requires that the whole post office be physically restored before the single message is available. So the Sesame GUI is able to actually go and pull your message, or you can pull it out of a restore area. But on the software side, we can't actually do anything about having to restore the whole post office, so that will be necessary. That's a real good candidate for the scheduled restores. Generally, back at GroupWise in the early evening, restored into the restore area in the late evening, and then in the morning, somebody loses the file, you just go drag it out.
Okay. The next one is, if you back up an NSS NetWare 6.5 volume and restore it to an OES2 NSS volume, does it preserve the trustee rights? Yes.
When you make the backup from a NetWare 6.5, you always go through the NetWare plugin. You will always get trustee rights unless you specify on the command line to skip them. On OES Linux, you have the ability to back up the NSS volume through the Novell plugin, which would get you trustee rights. You also have access to it from the Linux file system through the standard Linux agent. So that's something where it's common for customers to do the backup through the Linux agent due to performance reasons if they're in a non-clustered environment, and then just pull the ACL out of the TSA. So we support any combination of that, and it does handle those case sensitivity issues. So you can actually, back up a NetWare 6.5 eDirectory, GroupWise, NSS volume, and restore it all onto an OES server and expect it to work.
All right, let me see. Can we do a bare metal recovery on a server with the system installed on an EVMS, parentheses, NSS volume?
Yes, EVMS is fully supported with the SessamDR, as well as LVM, MD, and Linux Device Mapper. So really, anything in the Linux and Windows world that's storage is supported.